All right. That's that, I think. Can I, oh yes, you can say it's live. Okay. So as I say, we're a small but enthusiastic crowd. We're at 31.1.
Or is it? It's 32, I think.
32, are you starting with 32? Oh, right. Nek me.
Right.
32. Starting with Mona, and we'll just do as much or as little as we feel like.
Okay. So this is section 32. Nec me etiam parum confundebat, quod secundum occidentem legis litteram, tanta sit apud Deum eunuchorum abominatio, ut homines amputatis vel atritis testiculis eunuchizati intrare ecclesiam, tanquam olentes et immunde prohibeantur, et in sacrificio quoque talia penitus animalia respuantur. And it also disturbed me not a little bit, because according to Occidentum Legis Litteram, it's like the killing letter of the law, the scriptural thing. The abomination of eunuchs is so great before God that men, homines eunuchizati, having been castrated or with amputated or impaired testicles.
Yeah, I take it either cut off or crushed.
Crushed. Impaired, yeah.
Worn away.
Because you can't imagine, well, I don't know, maybe they're thinking of origin. Crushed testicle or
well,
impaired.
I think origin would be amputatis, and then, but I guess somebody could suffer an accident.
Right. Oh, that's true. Okay, yeah. Okay. Rather than being deliberate. Well, anyway, these people, prohibeantur, are forbidden to enter a church as though odoriferous, like smelling, and unclean. And also during sacrifice, or in sacrifice, such animals are completely rejected.
Right, exactly. And again, his word order is so off-putting.
Oh.
I mean, just difficult to wrap your mind around that. Penitus in the middle of talia animalia makes perfect sense once you see what it means, but it's just not instinctive. Very good.
So let's see the next sentence. Liber numeri capitulo 74 Septuaginta quator.
Very good.
Omne animal quod est contritis vel tonsis vel septis ablatisque testiculis non offeretis Domino. So that the book of Numbers in chapter 74, every animal which is with crushed, clipped, severed, and removed testicles, you will not offer to the Lord.
Good. Okay,
and then continuing on in the same vein, Deuteronomy capitulo 21, non intrabit eunuchus atritis vel imputatis testiculis et absciso veretro ecclesiam Dei. And in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 21, a eunuch with crushed or amputated testicles and with the penis having been cut off, will not enter into the house of God.
Good.
Kind of creepy.
Thoughts, comments? It's not a part of Deuteronomy that gets discussed very much.
Right. I think it was actually in the note, it said it was actually from somewhere else.
Oh.
Where, but, something biblical.
No. Right.
So let's see now. This is.
I think it might be in one of the prophets,
Mm-hmm.
earlier prophets.
It might be in several, several places.
Right.
Like Zechariah.
Mm-hmm.
Because Zechariah, what's the other guy, who returned to Jerusalem after the Babylonian exile, they were extremely harsh. There's an incident where several or a whole bunch of Jewish men who returned with Babylonian wives were forced to send their wives and children away because they were quote unquote impure.
Mm.
It's a really Nehemiah and Zechariah.
Okay.
Those are not the nicest books of the Bible.
My note says it's that the real references are Leviticus, but I can't remember. Oh, I did check the references. So they really are in the first one is really in Leviticus. Good. Any thoughts? Keep going, Mona.
Okay, this is section 33.1. In tam misera me contritione positum, confusio fateor pudores, potius quam devotio conversionis ad monasticorum latibula claustrorum compulit. And this is kind of strange, and speaking of twisted order, start off with confusio, the confusion or the embarrassment, I confess, pudores, of shame, rather than the zeal or the devotion of conversion, drove me, in that first part. Having been put in a wretched grief to such a degree, ad monasticorum latibula claustrorum, to the hiding places or secret places, I guess, of the monks' cloisters. I kind of like how he's got latibula sandwiched in, hidden between. Right. It's another word picture.
Jen must be thrilled.
I know.
Well, and that's why he put me, like, it was literally positum in the misera confusio.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. Yeah.
Very cute.
He works on it very, very hard.
Illa tamen, prius ad imperium nostrum sponte velata, et monasterium ingressa. That one, meaning Heloise, nevertheless, at our behest or order, that's his behest, it's my behest.
Prius.
Before was previously failed,
right,
or voluntarily, and entered not a monastery, probably a convent. Ambo itaque simul sacrum habitum suscepimus, ego quidem in abbatia Sancto Dionysii, illa in monasterio Argentioli. And thus we both receive the holy garb at the same time. Ego, I indeed in the Abbey of Saint Denis, that one, meaning her, Heloise, in the aforementioned convent of Argenteuil.
Very good. I can never say that Argenteuil thing.
Argenteuil, because Monet has a bunch of pictures of boats painted at Argenteuil. The boats at Argenteuil. Monet has a bunch of paintings.
Oh, really?
The boats at Argenteuil, they're really pretty.
Oh. Cool. Any problems, comments, thoughts? Okay. So now we need a volunteer. Jen, do you want to step in because you like it?
Sure.
Do you still like it?
Yes, of course.
Good. All right. Then please, can you step in at 33.2?
So, quaequidem memini, cum eus adolescentiam a jugo monasticae regulae, quamquam intolerabili poena, plurimi frustra detererent ei compatientes. In illam Corneliae quae Ramoniam, inter lacrimas et singultus, proet poterat, pro rumpens ait, etc. And In fact, I remember
Mm-hmm.
when plurimi, very many people, were in vain deterring her adolescence. I thought that was a very strange
Mm-hmm.
expression. Were deterring, trying to keep her from doing it. Deterring her adolescence from the yoke of the monastic rule,
Mm-hmm.
as if from an intolerable punishment, and they were doing that, having pity on her.
Mm-hmm.
She, bursting forth into that complaint of Cornelia, among her tears and sighs, as far as she could, said,
Good. Before you go on, can we talk about that adolescentia for a minute? I mean, what strikes it is very awkward, it seems to me, or rhetorical or figurative. Although it's sort of eased by you could, if you said compacientes adolescentia, taking pity on her adolescence, that makes sense.
On her youth?
On her youth, exactly. But it doesn't stop adolescentiam from being the object of deterrent, right? Because compatientes really goes with AE,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I don't know. I guess it's just a bold transfer. Is there a word for that? Just a transference to the abstract?
I mean, there are times I know in Silver Latin where you use abstracts instead of like substance instead of like people usually. But
Right.
aren't those usually neuter and not feminine like that?
I don't know about that. It does strike me that, in fact, Tacitus and Suetonius do that sometimes, which I should know.
Take the dative, though.
Anyway.
But if compatior takes the dative, so like
right.
You would have to understand AE meaning like AE adolescentia.
Right. Okay. So that doesn't help actually. We're just stuck with deterrent adolescentiam, whether we like it or not.
I mean, if the AS weren't there, or it said, it wouldn't bother me quite so much. But the like her adolescence, I don't know, that bothered me more than just. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It bothered me.
Right. Me too. Hi, Margaret. Okay, keep going, Jen.
All right, so now we have some dactylic hexameter. O maxime conjunx, o talamis indigne meis, hoc juris habebat in tantum fortuna caput, cur impia nupsi si miserum factura fui, nunc accipe poenas, sed qua spante luam. All right, so o maxime conjunx, o greatest spouse. O talamis indigne meis, O you or spouse, unworthy of my bedchambers.
Mm-hmm.
Does fortune have this law in such a great head? I admit I did not go look this passage up or anything, so that's what you
does fortune have this, and then it's a partitive genitive, this kind of jurisdiction over such a head?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cur impia nupsi, why did I impious marry?
Mm-hmm.
The miserum factura fui, if I was going to make I suppose you miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Nunc accipe poenas, now take the punishment, sed qua sponte luam, but the punishment which of my own accord I'll use as expiation.
Yes, I'll pay the penalty happily. And since writing that note, I am now better up on why Cornelia thinks it's all her fault. Apparently, and both Lucan and Plutarch make a point about this. She was previously married to the son of Marcus Crassus, who died at the Battle of Carrhae, so she thinks she's bad luck for her husbands. And in fact, she earlier says, I should have married Caesar because that'd teach him, right? So it's a great, I don't know if you're looking for anti-empowerment moments for women in the classical antiquity. On the one hand, she's very, very agentful, but on the other hand, she's just an agent as a total albatross. I don't know if woman as wife as albatross is a theme in Western literature.
It's very antique Roman if you think about it. I mean, there's Cornelia, who is noted mostly for producing a bunch of children, including 2 sons who got killed by mob rule. And then you have Lucretia, who is mostly noted for having been raped by the king's son, thus precipitating a revolt and the beginning of the Republic after she commits suicide.
But they're not.
What?
They're not portrayed negatively. Those are
heroines.
That's what I mean. What's considered positive for a Roman woman of the Republican period is pretty grim.
There's a wide range of problematic role model women. I grant you that. All sorts. They're all over the place. But I thought this particular example of marry me and I will bring your house down in ruin, admittedly from 2 data points. Maybe they don't have much a sense of statistics. I mean, anybody can have 2 unlucky husbands. Anyway, keep going, Jen. Before you do, one grammatical point in case I was going to add a note on this. It's actually totally regular, but it sort of threw me when I was reading it sleepy, is otalamis indigne meis. Indigne is, of course, the masculine vocative of indignus, which is exactly what you'd expect, but somehow I didn't, and it puzzled me.
Well, I think the one before it, the maxime, is even like more surprising because you expect it to be maxime, like the adverb.
And it's not.
It's vocative. As the scansion, of course, shows.
As the scansion. Well, yeah, and as you say, of course, Jen, but some of us were asleep at the switch.
Well, I read it and I was like, what? And then I read it again. I was like, oh. Right,
they're both vocative. I guess I'm not used to seeing vocatives just in the with adjectives. Maybe that's totally normal, but you don't see a lot of vocatives anyway. So
I think maxima is with conjuncts, so that's not, except for the fact that I just expect the word maxime and not maxima. But the indigne, I think, is a little strange. That's why, on mine, I wrote 2 above it. That's what I wanted with it.
Right. Or conjuncts.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think I don't know. I think it's strange to do that. It struck me as strange.
But at least it's classical.
It is. But
okay, keep going.
Okay. Atque his verbis adultare mox proporat. And among these words, while she was saying this, she hurries, because it's so exciting, next to the altar, et confestim ab episcopo benedictum velum ab altari tulit. And straight away she took from the bishop the blessed veil, cloth, from the altar. Et se monasticae professioni coram omnibus allegavit, and she tied herself to the monastic profession life in front of everyone.
Good. In front of everybody. Good. Any thoughts, questions, doubts? All right. Mona, do you want to volunteer for 34?
Yeah, I can give it a try.
Yeah, you were so heroic.
Not as heroic as Abelard or anything, but
or Eloise.
Or even her. Vix autem de vulnere ad hoc convalueram, cum ad me confluentes, clerici tam ab abate nostro, quam a me ipso continuis supplicationibus efflagitabant, quatinus quod bucusque pecuniae vel laudis cupiditate egeram, nunc amor Dei operam studiodarum, tendens quod mihi puerat ad Domino talentum commissum, ab ipso esse cum usiris, whoa, it's long, exigendum, et qui de vitibus maxime bucusque intenderam, palpibus erudiendis a modo studerum. I'll stop there.
Yeah.
So let's see. Now, I had scarcely recovered from the wound, his favorite wound, when when the clerics flocking to me, tam ab abate nostro, so as much from our abbot, quam ame ipso, as from me myself. I guess they were his students, like his own followers. Efflagit Tavant kept demanding with unending or continual entreaties that that which I had done thus far up to this point, with the desire for money or praise.
Good.
Now, I might give attention to Theodatum for devotion in the love of God. He's talking about multiplying money here, or talent. Talent, I'm not sure if he means it literally as money. I'm being aware that.
Before you get on to the talent thing, let's just take a minute before we, I'm trying to think, partly thinking aloud. I would give, so the idiom is operam dare, to pay attention to. So they were asking me to pay attention to the studium, right, which up to this point I had done for the sake of money, but now I was
left out a word.
Out of the love of God. And so I guess the antecedent of quad is studio, right?
Isn't studio darum?
I think it's darum operam studio.
Okay, right.
Quod egeram. Does that seem right?
Yeah.
Jen?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. It's confusing because you don't expect. Well, it's confusing because the relative comes first. Yeah. Okay, keep going. So basically, to sum up, and the other thing that I think you got, but is tricky, I notice, it's hard to put it in English, is efflagitabant ab abate. They demanded from the abbot, and they demanded from me myself. Oh
yeah, okay.
So that's what those ab and the ame are doing, which is not obvious at first. Good. Attendance. Keep going.
Okay, so I give attention for devotion and the love of God. Being aware of that, the talentum, the talent, which had been given or entrusted, committed to me by the Lord, was to be exacted with interest, and that I, who had directed my efforts particularly to rich men up to this point, and that I take pains with instructing poor people from this time on. And that I realize now that I had been touched by the divine hand, especially because of this.
Good.
In order that, having been distracted or detached from carnal allurements, and the confused life of the time, secularly, or the world.
Good.
I might have time for the study of letters, and that I might become a philosopher indeed, or truly, not so much of the world, philosopher though, might become not so much a philosopher of the world as a philosopher of God, which is kind of weird.
Very
good. Divine philosopher.
Very good. That's a really hard paragraph, and it makes me think we should go back to those saints' lives where things were much simpler.
Right.
The one thing I wanted just to mention is the ob hoc is, I forget what you said, but it's for the sake of. It's not because of. It's for the sake of, right? That I should know that I was touched by God's hand for this purpose.
Because of
right?
this.
For this, right?
For this.
I mean, right? I guess.
I said because of this. I think.
Right. I guess it just because of this is just ambiguous in English, right? Now that I think about it, right? So, but it's not causal. It's for purpose. The purpose of. Very good.
I was wondering what et ob hoc maxime dominica manu. What does maxime go with? How is it integrated in there?
I would take it with tactum esse, that I had been touched by the divine hand for this reason particularly, right? That's the main reason that I was touched by the divine hand. Especially, good.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
I mean, but Abelard does this all the time, that you have to know, at least with adverbs and other words too, I think, you have to know where they go. I mean, you have to know that you have to, the word order doesn't help you very much with the sense. You have to see what the words, what the point of the word is to know how to translate it, if you see what I mean, as opposed to relying on just on where it is, right? Because logically it could be on account of this, in particular, the Lord's hand, right? That's what, I mean, I think right? We would think it was emphasizing Dominica, not anybody else's hand, but the Lord's hand in particular. But I don't think it means that, because that's kind of, it's kind of weak, right? That doesn't add much to the meaning. Whereas I think God gave him these talents particularly for this purpose, makes all sense in the world. But the Latin doesn't invite that understanding very easily. All right. Any other thoughts? Brian, you ready?
I think so. I compared to last summer, this is so much more convoluted to work through.
I apologize.
Well, no, it's interesting. Maybe I'll finally understand how to translate correlatives after this summer.
Sure.
Okay. So 35.1. Erat autem abatia illa nostra, adquam me contuderam secularis ad modum vitae atque turbimissimae, cuius abbas ipse quo ceteris prelatione maior tanto vita deterior atque infamia notio erat. However, that monastery of ours, to which I had brought myself,
good,
was of a very worldly and most shameful way of life.
Mm-hmm.
The abbot of which himself the greater he was than others by authority,
Mm-hmm.
the more degenerate was his life, and the greater the infamy.
Yes.
Using your word order as a help there. I just want to pause here. It's just funny to think of him walking in there after this enormous scandal and then immediately laying into people for being, immoral.
Right.
It's just, it's extraordinary.
Irrepressible, right?
Yes, irrepressible. Okay, here we go. He's going to stir up some more trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Quorum quidam intoleраbiles virtias ego frequentur atque vehementer modo privatim modo publicae redarguens omnibus me supera morem honorosum atque odiosum effeci. Here's what I got. I went to the verb at the end. I certainly exposed frequently and vehemently
Mm-hmm.
The insufferable moral depravity of anyone,
Mm-hmm.
At one time privately, at another time publicly, that I, excessively oppressive and disagreeable, so I think that refers to Abelard, irritating people, and then finally convicted or accused. I'm not.
You're doing omnibus me supramodum.
Yes.
Yeah, I made myself onerous and hateful, burdensome and hateful to everybody beyond measure.
Oh, I see. So
right. Me effeci.
So, but effeci also is used in the beginning, right? I certainly.
Redarguens is used in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So arguing about the intolerable disgustingnesses, I made myself intolerable to everybody else.
And then the redarguens is a present participle which indicates that he's accusing or convicting people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before we go on, you began. I think you began. I think you misunderstood the very beginning of the way that sentence begins. The quorum is one of those. Jen, what's the word for it? Resumptive relative pronouns. Is that a thing? Is that what you call it?
It's where it refers to the thing. It's with omnibus.
Right. So whatever you call it, which we can't remember, which I feel better about that Jen can't either. It's when you begin a sentence with a relative pronoun which picks up on the previous, because it's antecedent in the previous sentence, and you almost can't translate it and make it have sense in colloquial modern English. We had it before when we just translated it who, right, or they, right? In this case, it's we would say their intolerable uncleanlinesses, right? It's the intolerable uncleanliness of whom, indeed, I objecting to, redarguens. So do you see what I mean? What I mean, it's that it picks up what the antecedent is those monks I was complaining about. Mm-hmm. But by putting it into the relative pronoun, it becomes untranslatable or almost untranslatable in English. You could say whose intolerable uglinesses, attacking whose intolerable uglinesses, I made myself intolerable. I mean, it does work in English. It's just not very modern and colloquial. And it's certainly hard to kind of wrap your mind around it when you're translating.
Yeah, so books will often tell you, like, if you have like a commentary, it'll often say like equals, et eorum, like, to tell you that. That's what the...
Right. That's a good trick. I'll add that. for future generations. Keep going, Brian. Doing great.
Going on to the final sentence. Qui ad quotidianam discipulorum nostrorum instantiam maxime gavisi occasionem nactis sunt quame asse removerent. They who greatly rejoiced at the daily earnestness of our students took possession of the opportunity by which route they removed me from them, my students.
Right. They grabbed an opportunity by which they could remove me from them.
But them can't be the students. Them is
no, it's from themselves. Right. So, and I remain puzzled by the puzzlement I said in my notes. I don't know why they should be so happy at the student enthusiasm, unless it's because what comes next, it turns out either he was teaching pagan stuff so they could convict him of that, or he was teaching Christian stuff, theological stuff, but he wasn't qualified. But on the face of it, it seems to me if he's attracting students, you'd think that, well, you wouldn't see it was an occasion to get rid of him.
I think there's the note that he was teaching Origen, and Origen had been translated into Latin, but there was a question as to whether he was heretical early on. I don't think we consider him heretical now. I see him referenced all the time, but he may have been considered still heretical in the 11th and early 12th century.
Well, he's always been suspect, right? But
there are several church fathers who have always been suspect. I mean, some of our most important church fathers have a lot of controversy during their lifetime, and it didn't exactly dissipate.
Right, but I still, it seems to me they've left something out with this happiness about his popularity with students. I mean, Gawisi seems such a strong statement. They were so happy about the enthusiasm, the daily enthusiasm of the disciples that they couldn't be concessive, could it? Although they were really happy, no, because that gave them the occasion. So I don't understand that. I still don't.
He really tortures the language in this passage.
I don't know if it's a language thing or just
the way he thinks, maybe,
Right. It may just be that I've got this mindset that, of course, if you're a popular teacher, that strengthens your position rather than weakens it. But maybe it's like UVA, where you get a teaching award, and then everybody realizes what a loser you are.
Is that true of UVA?
I have heard that. I did not just say that. I've heard that is true at a certain major university. I mean, all I know is I had a friend who got one, and he just said, "Oh my God, now I'm in trouble." I mean, he was being facetious, but it was an indication of the regard for which teaching awards were held.
I think the most that I can think is that monasteries were supposed to be retreats. And the regular life was supposed to be, you were supposed to be off, you were with a group of monks, but you were supposed to be off away from secular life.
That makes sense.
By attracting all these students, he's really sort of turning that on its head.
Right. I think that sounds right to me, right? Because we got a competitive cat thing going on.
Oh, is somebody else going to get it?
I'm sorry, that's Jen's hair. I thought she had a cat. I thought you had a cat on your shoulder, and I thought it would be very cute to have like matching shoulder cats.
Was it Victoria who had her cat? She had like a little white kitty.
I had the cat that was on the keyboard and it kept making.
Yeah.
Anyway, for if anyone is listening or cares, but for future reference, I think it's a great example of how if you can't think in your own terms, right? Teachers are interested in, not all teachers at all places have been interested in enrollments. And if you're in a monastery and you're supposed to be by yourself, then all of those students are the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense.
Also, it fits his I'm such a great guy, much better and smarter than everybody else. See how they're torturing me, you know.
Right.
I'm so good that they're actually going to get rid of me. They're jealous.
Right. Right.
I love how we're basically on the side of the abbot and his monks at this point. I mean, we've just been through all this stuff. He's been through all this horrible stuff. And we're all kind of like, and yet he didn't learn.
Brought it all on himself.
Right.
All of it.
Well, you do wonder what the monks could have been getting up to that was so much worse than seducing your student. But what do I know?
Sleeping with nuns.
Sure.
That was a common accusation. But I suspect that the monks weren't getting up to anything, and he was just being a twit.
Right. Well, he must have had something he objected to, but maybe it was, who knows.
I don't think he objects to a lot of things.
All right. So, Paula, you ready? 35.2?
I guess I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Diu itaque illis instantibus atque importune pulsantibus. For a long time, to those urging and also those agitating inconveniently, abate quoque nostro et fratribus intervenientibus, with our own abbot and brothers intervening.
Before you go on, I think the first, all of those illis instantibus pulsantibus, I think that's another ablative absolute. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Second one.
Okay, I was wondering if it was dative or is ablative.
Because I think there's nothing for the dative to go with. So I think it could be a dative advantage, I guess, but I think it's much more likely to be an ablative absolute parallel with the other ablative absolute that you just
mentioned. The second one, yeah. That makes sense. Okay, with those urging, okay. Ad celam, or would be celam at this point, quandam recessi, at a certain cell for retreat. Does he mean at the monastery?
I think it's somewhere else. He goes somewhere else.
Okay, so at another place where he's retreating to a cell, cave, whatever.
Right. Yeah. So it's I retreated to a certain cell. A certain.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So to a certain cell, I retreated.
Mm-hmm.
Scholis more solito vacaturas. With the students in habitual conduct about to wander?
No. Sorry, I need to think of it. Let me put that more tactfully.
No.
I've got to get
wrong.
September
is coming. I'm out of practice with my being tactful. So let's move on. I being about to be vacant, being about to have time, right? So that's a future.
Okay. I was wondering which one it was supposed to be for vacaturas.
Right. It's a future active participle of walking. So, and being about to be vacant, to have time for the students, for students.
Oh.
And then more solito. Partly the trick there is it's just a cliche in the accustomed way, as usual. So I went to a certain cell, and I guess we would really translate it as purpose, right? In order to have time for students in my accustomed way.
Yeah. Okay.
And the Wakaturis, if you're looking at it in the dictionary, it should only have one C. That might have been why.
Oh, right. The Latin, that's a medieval extra C.
What's that?
The double C is medieval.
Yes, I figured that out.
It's wako, wakare.
I just wasn't sure what were, because it was like to be vacant, I was like, really? I couldn't fit it in.
No, it actually it's one of the meanings. I think.
Yes, it is one of the meanings. I just couldn't figure out how it fit in to what he was saying.
Okay. So,
okay.
Keep going.
Ad quas quidem tanta scholarium multitudo confluxit. To those who indeed such of the multitude of students he gathered, or it gathered.
You're right. The multitudo is the subject.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So such a big crowd of students.
Okay, so such a multitude of students gathered,
and they flowed together ad quas, to which. I think scholis in the previous sentence has to mean school rather than students, so that quas makes sense.
Like lessons. It's going to mean lessons or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like so many students came to hear me, but.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Ut nec locus hospitiis nec terra sufficeret alimentis. That neither the place of the hospice nor the earth would suffice for food, or for feeding them.
Yes, but hospitiis is parallel to alimentis, right? It's dative too. So there wasn't a place for hospitalities, like there weren't enough places to stay. There wasn't a place for, I can't put that in English. There wasn't
with respect to
there wasn't space for
lodgings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's what we call hospice today. You know, if you go overseas and you're like you're a student traveling overseas.
Or not, because I stay in hostels all the time.
Hostels.
Hospices are where you go to die.
I know. I was trying to figure out what the right word. A hostel. It's a hostel is what it is.
Yeah.
It's where these guys are staying. It's not really a dormitory because they're not that formal.
Well, it's the same. I mean, in French, isn't hôpital is a mansion rather than it's certainly it's a house, not a hospital. So it's a place for hospitality.
Well, the hospitalers provided both lodging and medical care for pilgrims, and they had hospitals.
Okay.
So hôpital was hospital. It might mean lodging as well, but it was also lodging for sick people. It was also treatment for sick people.
That's Wentz Hotel too.
Right.
Yeah.
My French is a little rusty, but I remember that all I remember is that hôpital doesn't just mean hospital. Right. Anyhow.
No, but I'm just saying in the medieval though, that hospitis is like hospitalers. It's very similar. And it has they weren't running hotels.
Yeah, but here it's a place to stay. Here it's a place.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep going.
Like where you stay at Kalamazoo when you go to the conference.
Yes.
I've never been to Kalamazoo.
I went.
Okay, or Leeds.
Stay in the dorm. That's right.
Yeah, stay in the dorm. It's been a while, but I remember the dorm.
All right, 36.1.
Ubi quod professione mei,
I think.
Okay, that convenientius erat. Where because my profession, or is it when? Because my profession was more convenient.
You've got to deal with the neuterness of quod convenientius. Which thing was more convenient? And then dative professione mei for my teaching. And the quod erat is actually setting up the clause that comes next, or clause that's coming sooner or later.
Right. Okay. Sacra plurimum lectione studium intendens. Intending much study of sacred reading.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now the sacre is like sacri, right?
Mm-hmm.
A-E?
Yes.
Yeah.
And intendens probably means, I would have said it meant devoting study rather than planning on studying, right? Intendo in its original sense means like head for, direct your course to.
Okay.
Okay.
Excuse me. Let me find my place again. Where is it? Oh, Secularium Artium Disciplinum, or Disciplinum?
Mm-hmm. Disciplinum.
Okay. The discipline of the secular arts.
Uh-huh.
Quibus amplius assuetus pueram, with which I had been more accustomed.
Uh-huh.
Et quas me plurimum requirebant, and which they required more from me.
Yep. Or plurimum, a whole lot, right? Superlative, right? Which they required from me a great deal.
A lot more, okay.
And now you get to the verb.
Non penitus abiece?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Completely got that one wrong. Woohoo! Okay.
I didn't throw it away. Penitus, absolutely. So I didn't throw away the study of the secular arts with which I had been accustomed to which I had been more accustomed. I didn't, and which people really wanted from me. I didn't throw the secular arts, the discipline of the secular arts, completely away.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Sed dehis quasi hamum vendam fabricavi. But from these, as if a certain fishhook, or like a fishhook, I fabricated. I fabricated a sort of fishhook.
Exactly. I fabricated a sort of fishhook from these studies of liberal arts.
Okay.
Of secular.
Okay. Quo illos philosophico sapore inescatos ad vere philosophiae lectionem attraherem. By which I had inhaled those gluttons with philosophical taste to reading in true philosophy.
Yes, by which I could, attraherem, right? Notice it's conjunctive. By which I could drag them or attract them, sort of made hungry with philosophical taste, right? They've got this little taste of philosophy on the hook, on the secular hook, and I use that to drag them to the reading of true, as you say, of true philosophy.
Okay.
Good.
Now this is where we get to the weird words and stuff.
Yep.
Sicut et summum Christianorum philosophorum originem consue vice historia meminit ecclesiastica. As it were, and origin the highest of Christian philosophers, the church history was accustomed to remember. I know it switches the grammar, but I couldn't figure out how to fit consue vice in with meminit.
It depends on it. So the church history remembers that the highest of the Christian philosophers, Origen, was accustomed to do that.
Okay.
And I think actually what may have thrown you off is secret. Secret remember means just as. Just as. So I did this just as the ecclesiastical history says that Origen was accustomed to do.
Okay, so where does the et right after the secret come in?
I think it just says basically Origen did it too, just as Origen also, according to the ecclesiastical history, was accustomed to do that. It's sneaky. Any thoughts? We're at the end of our we could just stop. We could push on and do some unseen translation.
Didn't the assignment go through the next week?
Okay.
I thought it went through 37. One, no?
Mm-hmm.
Did it get shortened?
Sorry?
Yeah, the assignment says through 37.1.
What says?
On the sign-up sheet.
There's a piece after it.
Did you sign up for 37.1?
No, but it's listed there. So I did it.
Okay. Jen, you can translate all to the end of 37.1 if you want to, or right? Or
Dynamo.
I'm happy to.
Mm-hmm.
I like translating. And I have to listen to the students translate all year long.
Oh God.
They'll know with them and take it away. I actually had a professor in graduate school who would do that. It was a paleography class. And when you made a mistake reading out the manuscript, the person would actually yell, "No." I don't recommend that. Cum autem, 36.2. Cum autem in divina scriptura non minorem mihi gratiam quam in saeculari dominus contulissi videretur, quae perunt ad modum, et ex utraque lectione scholae nostrae multiplicari, et caeterae omnes vehementer attenuari. But when in the divine scripture, the Lord seemed to have brought to me not lesser grace popularity than in secular teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Our school, Scholae Nostrae, quae perunt, began to be multiplied ad modum quite a lot from both kinds of teaching, ex utraque lectione.
Mm-hmm.
And caeterae omnes, all the other schools, vehementer attenuari, began to be really thinned down.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because who wouldn't want to go see Abelard most? Everyone.
Well, you know what the French are like, and they're great professors, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just think of all of those people sitting around Paris with their disciples.
Mm.
Do you want to keep going, Jen?
Sure. 36.3. Unde maxime magistrorum invidiam atque odium adversum me concitavi. And that's how I stirred up, that's how I stirred up the ill will and hatred, or even envy and hatred, of the teachers adversum me, against me. Qui in omnibus quae poterant mihi derogantes, duo praecipue absenti mihi semper obiciebat. Who, saying nasty things about me in every matter that they could, especially were casting up two things, duo, to my blame, always when I wasn't there. Quod scilicet proposito monarchi valdesit contrarium saecularium librorem studio deteneri. So this is the first thing, namely, scilicet, that it was completely against the practice of a monk to be deteneri, to be held fast by the study or enthusiasm or pursuit of secular books.
Mm-hmm.
Et quod sine magistro ad magisterium divinae lectionis ac cedere praesumpsissem, and that I had presumed to approach toward, to start divine teaching, sine magistra, without a teacher. I had dared to approach the teaching of the divine reading teaching. Ut sic videlicet, omne mihi doctrinae scholaris exercitium indicaretur. So that thus, namely, the entire practice of the student teaching, doctrinae scholaris. Now those.
I think so. Of teaching doctrine, don't you think? The entire practice of
instruction to the students.
Right, instruction of students.
Yeah, that interdicerator would be forbidden to me. Ad quod incassanter episcopos, archiepiscopos, abates, et quascumque poterant religiosi nominis personas incitabant. Toward which purpose they were stirring up constantly bishops, archbishops, abbots, and whatever persons, personas of religious name, poterant, they could.
They could. Good. Yeah, I need to know more. We need the medieval, well, Paul, you must know about this. You probably take it for granted. The whole difference between that being a monk is so very different from being the kind of cleric that Abelard was first, because he was a monk. I mean, I tend to lump clerics together. Abelard was a cleric when he was teaching pagan literature, but then he becomes a monk and they say, oh no, you shouldn't teach pagan literature anymore. So
well, there's a lot going on. I don't claim to, because my knowledge of tertiary orders is a little vague. I gotta be honest. But I do know that this is around the period that the Templars are about to be formed, and they start off as an Augustinian tertiary order. So there are a few things going on. In one of them is that up until around this period, Cluniac monasticism has been all the rage. So it's Benedictine rule, and the Cluniac monks have a reputation for kind of being fat and happy and off on their own estates. And then you start getting the Cistercians in with Saint Bernard, who of course did not like Abelard. And they go out there and work the fields themselves, and they're very kind of ostentatious in their asceticism. I won't get into the Irish monks because that's several centuries before. We're way beyond that. But you know, there's this constant tug of war between you know, asceticism and not doing even that to excess, because that's the sin of pride. And there's also the idea of what are the monks actually doing in terms of charity for their communities and things like that. I think the big thing that's going on here is that Abelard is a secular cleric. And this is the very, very, very beginning of our modern university system.
Right.
So the modern university system starts around this time to teach non-monks, non-church people, church stuff.
Right.
In the West. Now, in Constantinople, in the Byzantine Empire, bureaucrats are very common and have been throughout, because that's the Roman Empire. But a bureaucracy, the way that the people Abelard is teaching come to build and represent, is really new in France. And the church is very worried. We're right after Gregory VII versus Henry IV, and their big conflict. And so the church is very, very worried about the secular powers dominating local church practices. So they're becoming increasingly intolerant of any secular interference in local church matters, like monasteries.
Right.
And I think that's probably what's going on here is that Abelard, well, I mean, aside from the fact that Abelard is tone deaf and a jerk and doesn't, you know, intentionally provokes people for kicks. The other thing is that he's coming into conflict where he is really not, he's in the monastery because he kind of has to be.
Right.
And they know it.
Right.
And he sort of is like a symbol of these secular people. Like, you know, it was very common practice up until like the century before for kings and higher nobility to stick the excess females in the family into a monastery, into a convent, and the females would become an abbess, and they would run the monastery. So it's kind of like Abelard is expecting to do that, and the abbot is understandably wondering what the heck is going on with Abelard's vocation, which clearly is not religious. So I mean, it's complex. I'm sure there are Abelard articles about this that go on at length about Abelard's conflict with the monks, but I think it's just that he just plain doesn't belong there.
Right.
And you know, he represents something to them that is like a big thorn in their side.
Right. No, that's all clearly part of the story, and it's all interesting. It's my own non-medieval background that just I tend to think you're either a cleric or you're not a cleric, and that clearly is wrong because he's been a cleric all this time and now it's different. Anyway, does anybody want to keep going, or should we just wrap it up here?
I would say if you want to get like a quick overview of this, like the first few chapters, I think it's C.H. Lawrence. It's called Medieval Monasticism.
Okay.
And it's a little dated now, although they kind of update it every so often. Even though I'm pretty sure he's been dead for a while. But it's the first chapter, a couple of chapters especially, have a really nice overview up until about the 12th century.
Okay, thanks.
What's going on. It's a complex situation. It's kind of hard to explain in a few minutes.
Right. All right. Any votes on whether we go forward?
I think we should just finish this section.
All right, go ahead. Margaret, do you want to volunteer, or are you just here for the ride? I guess unless you unmute yourself, Mona, do you want to try 37.1?
Sure. Let's see. So this is 37.1. Okay. De libro theologiae suae et persecutione quam inde sustinit ac condiscipuli. So it's about his his own book of theology and about the persecution which he got from his followers because of it. So accidit autem mihi ut ad ipsum fidei nostrae fundamentum humanae rationis similitudinibus discernendum primo me applicarem. However, now it happened to me that at first I devoted myself for the purpose of examining the basis or the foundation itself of our faith by analogies of human reason.
Good. Oh, wait, though, don't you think that it's the fundamentum humanae rationis? The foundation of human reason, I thought, should be talked about by means of analogies.
Okay.
I don't think so.
No?
No, I think it has to be the way Mona did it.
Yeah?
Foundation, I think I said the foundation or the basis.
Oh, right, because it's the foundation of our faith.
By analogies to explain reason with
reasons that are from human reason. Yes, you're totally right. Thank you. And my apologies.
No problem. Et quindam Theologiae Tractatum de Unitate et Trinitate Divina Scholaribus Nostris componerem. And I composed a certain tract or treatise of theology, namely, not namely, it's not in the text, but he says on the unity and on the divine Trinity for our students. Qui humanas et philosophicas rationes recurrebant, who kept requiring or asking about human and philosophical reasons. Et plusque intelligi quamque dici possunt efflagitabant, and they efflagitabant, they kept demanding more those things which were able to be understood than those things quaedici which were able to be said.
Yes.
Decentes quidem verborum superfluam esse prolationem quam intelligentiam non sequeretur, saying indeed that examples are mentioned or putting forward of words, or like just producing words, which understanding might not follow, is superfluous.
And I think you could even be stronger. The subjunctive of non sequeretur, it could be potential the way you suggest, but it could also be characteristic, just the kinds, just so it's really, we would just translate it, things that intelligence, understanding don't follow. But I mean, it's that they were saying that it was superfluous, that it was superfluous to put something forward in words which understanding didn't follow. Right, and the subjunctive is because it's a general a characteristic clause. At least that's how I took it. Good, keep going.
Non sequeretur. Nec credi posse aliquid nisi primitus intellectum et ridiculosum esse aliquem aliis predicare, nor is anything able to be believed unless first having been understood, unless first understood or having been understood. And it is ridiculous to predicare, to preach something to others, quod nec ipse nec illi quos doceret intellectu capere possunt, which neither he himself, nec ipse, nor those whom he teaches are able to grasp in the intellect, in the mind.
Yep.
Domino ipso arguente quod caeci essent duces caecorum. With the Lord himself arguing, averring, like asserting, declaring that the blind were leaders of the blind.
Good. I think, though, if you go back to aliquem aliis predicare, they said that it was ridiculous. I think I took that as it was ridiculous for someone to preach to anybody, someone to preach to other people, right? Or anyone. They said it was ridiculous for anyone to preach to others who didn't himself know, or those whom he was teaching, who couldn't understand with their mind. Good. It's a very powerful little paragraph, I thought. I like this picture of people they've got the words but not the understanding. It's sort of the motto for the next.
I have a couple of questions. Probably because we're start reading it. But I found, and I guess because it's pretty much all one long sentence.
Like all the other passages.
But yeah, I found that pretty confusing. I guess the one specific question I have was in the third line about humanis et philosophicas rationes. I don't understand what that means. Human and philosophical reasons.
People who were looking, I took it to mean, so these are our students who were looking for philosophical and I mean, they were looking for the answers to life, right? They're looking for both, I don't know.
It sounded strange. I have a question mark over humanus there because it sounded weird to me too, but then what else can you?
Right.
Human and philosophical reasons.
Yeah, the literal translation makes sense. I see how the grammar means that. I just have no idea. I understand why students would seek rationes. And I think I understand what philosophical reasons are. I'm not sure what a human reason is or how it's different from a philosophical one.
It's the difference between philosophy and metaphysics.
And what is that?
Philosophy is human, metaphysics is divine.
I would have.
I think that's basically where we're going there.
See, I think by philosophy he means theology.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. No, he's been talking here about the difference between theology and pagan philosophy.
That's true.
So I think what he's talking about, the human philosophy, is like a euphemism for pagan philosophy. Ancient pre-Christian philosophy.
I guess the question is whether whether these are human and, I mean, whether these are one set of rationes that are both human and philosophical, or whether they're human versus philosophical. And I don't have an answer to any of that, I'm afraid. But it's a really good question, Margaret. Thank you.
What I thought in this, that it goes with the rest of the passage. So he's saying that students want things that they don't want to take things on faith. Like, isn't that so? Therefore, they're looking to have these rational, like reasoning explanations of things, where they're looking to have everything like about theology, but they're looking to have it put in like logical terms in words that they can understand, as opposed to like a divine mystery that they just like apprehend by faith.
Right, that makes sense.
That was, and I did think humanus et philosophicas was a hendiatus.
Wow.
Sorry, I forget. What's a hendiatus?
When you express one idea by means of the like something and something.
Yeah, it's basically they're meant to be equivalent.
Too, right.
Right.
It's very common in medieval.
Right. So in other words,
it's secular medieval writing.
It's rationes. It's philosophically human rationes, or humanely philosophical rationes.
Okay. I thought he was contrasting two different classes.
I did too when you asked.
No.
But I think you're right. I think I like what you guys are saying.
It's like you often run into it in documents around this time. Mostly I've seen them in Southern French and early Northern Spanish, but I think they're in like Northern French too. It's like you have burros and asses. You have money and filthy lucre.
Okay.
You know, it's just a different word for the same. So you're basically establishing an equivalency.
Okay.
It's human stuff and philosophical stuff is equivalent in the Senate. That's what I think he's doing. That's my theory.
All right.
Okay, one other question about quam intelligentia non sequeretur. Is that follow, like in English, we say, I follow what you mean? So the intellect couldn't, can't follow it, can't make sense of it? I don't know, can I use follow in that metaphorical way?
I didn't take it that way. I just thought it meant that understanding wasn't coming along with the words, right? The words are coming out, but the intelligentia isn't
coming after it.
Right. It's not, I mean, I think it's literally not coming, not following along.
Thanks, that helps.
All right. Any thoughts? Jen, do you want to wrap it up? Take it on home. You know you do.
You want to do another one?
37.2.
We can do another one. Quem quidem tractatum, cum vidissent et legisent formi, poipit in commune omnibus plurimum placere. This treatise, in fact, when a whole bunch of people, even the majority of people, I don't know, had seen it and had read it, it began to please all of them very much in common. Quod in eo pariter omnibus satisferi super hoc questionibus videbatur. Because in this, it was seeming to equally satisfy everyone on this matter, to satisfy all the questions on this matter.
How do you deal with this satisferi being passive? I'm blanking out. Which,
yeah, I just ignored it. That's how I dealt with it.
Not deponents, too bad.
No, which seemed to be
sufficient. Seemed to be.
Well, that's what we wanted to mean. I'm just suddenly. Oh wait, I've got a note on it. The impersonal form of satisfactio, depending on the impersonal videbatur, it seemed to me that there was satisfaction.
Oh, I see. It seemed that
there was satisfaction going on.
That being satisfied was happening.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I'm happy about that, but it's since I was otherwise stumped. Plus, maybe I stole it from somebody who knew what they were talking about. Anyway.
I don't have anything better.
All right, keep going.
Et quoniam questiones istae prae omnibus difficiles videbantur. And since these questions were seeming difficult beyond all the others, quanto earum maior extiterat gravitas, tanto solutiones earum censebatur maior subtilitas. So they were seeming, and since these questions were seeming more difficult than any others, difficult beyond others, the greater their seriousness, the greater there was seriousness of these. By so much was there greater subtleness being judged. Was the subtleness of their solution judged the greater?
Yes. Good. One more paragraph and we're done. Or do you want to go for keep going?
Sure. Unde Emily mei vehementer accensi concilium contra me congregaverunt. For this reason, my rivals, really, really mad, convened a council against me. Maxime duo illi antiqui insidiatores, especially those two plotters against me of old, Albericus Scilicet and Lotulphus, whose names are something, Albericus and Lotulf, quiam defunctis magistris eorum et nostris, who now with their and my teacher having died, Wilhelmo Scilicet atque Anselmo, namely William and Anselm, post eos quasi regnare se solos appetebat. They were really eager that after those guys, they themselves should, as it were, reign alone. Atque etiam ipsis tamquam heredes succedere. And they were really eager that they should succeed to those very people like heirs.
Yes. Good. All right. My little mind has shut down. Okay. Well, thanks everyone.
Thanks everybody.
That was fun. As always. See you next week. Possibly. Who knows? At some point, I'm gonna have to decide how much of this to cut. I want us to at least end up at the end. Basically, in case anyone is at risk of spoiler alert, the next big chunk of the story is all about theological controversy and the aftermath of theological controversy, and it's a little tedious until he gets to the very end when he goes back to Brittany, where hilarity ensues. So I'll try and figure out how to make cuts and how far to keep going and stuff like that. We might even.
I have to admit that the only way I feel sorry for Abelard really is that I dislike Bernard even more than I disliked Abelard. and nobody ever gave Bernard any comeuppance. He just got old and crotchety and turned into a senior statesman, and then eventually, finally, he got out of everybody's hair by dying. that and the failure of the Second Crusade embarrassed him a bit.
Well, I don't know. I have a strong emotional attachment to self-absorbed, self-righteous.
Racists, yes.
Racists?
Yeah. In Praise of the New Knighthood is very racist.
Oh, but that's not Abelard. Or the people.
No, I'm talking about Bernard. Yeah.
Oh.
No.
I was thinking of my late lamented father, who I could totally imagine telling all the monks exactly how they were living their lives the wrong way. So on that, having broadcast that fact to the world, I'm going to stop.
I'll just encourage you to cut any boring theological controversy arguments.
Okay.
Only even if it contributes to our salvation, we're not really concerned.
Well,
what week are we ending this summer?
Sorry?
What week are we ending this summer?
Well, before September is all I've got, but we could end earlier, and I could just go to the fun parts, and then we could end earlier. We can discuss that, whatever. That makes sense to you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Then that way we wouldn't have to, that way we'd be done before I left for my last final trip. Anyway, bye guys. Good night, and I will end now.
Thanks.
Good night.
Like,
See you, Margaret.
Bye.
Good to see you the other day.